Hey everyone, Darren Connell here. Welcome back to my studio. Welcome back to this Kylo Ren tutorial series where we are using Vallejo paints for the first time properly on any of my work, because I previously used to use these MP paints for the last 13 years and I realised that nobody could buy them. Just not at all, unless you lived in Liverpool. Or I think there was one website online that sold those paints, but it was like a proper 1990s looking website. Nobody could buy them very easily, put it that way. These paints you can get everywhere. So I thought I'll change to these ones, make it easier for people who are learning with me, instead of me telling them I'm using tanned flesh and everyone's like, yeah, but what's that? All my paints are different. Well, now you can buy exactly the same ones. And indeed, I always put a link now at the bottom in the descriptions of any of my videos where you can go and get the exact same paints that I use and the same brushes that I use and the same paint holders, the brush holders, all of my gear, even my microphones and my webcams and everything. So if you're wanting to do this, whether it's as a hobby, whether it's as a line of work, there will be a link where you can get all that stuff. But Vallejo paints, Kylo Ren for the first time. We are up to part 12. Last time was part 11. We were doing the irises, trying to get them in the right place, at the right size, pointing in the right direction. I did some of the work off cam to line them up, just to adjust them a little bit that way, a little bit that way, a little bit up, a little bit down, to get them right. I got that done eventually. I really wish I could just go on like some people and go zoop, 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 and have it perfect. I don't know how they do that. I think they might be using magic. I need to find out what they do and how, because I can't do that. I've never been able to do it that good. So doing that part always takes me a while, which I suppose is good because it lets you know that, you know, that's how it goes. Even for people who people think are good, like me. And I'm not saying that I'm good, I'm saying that, well, people say that about me. But even people who are supposed to be good struggle with stuff, and eyes, I'm rubbish. Pointing eyes in the right place, I'm so bad at that. So I did that. I did a little bit more time off cam, getting his eyes in the right place. I think they're right. Sometimes I do it and I spend ages and I'm like, yep, that's perfect. And then I carry on painting and, you know, 5 hours down the line I'll have done the eyebrows and done other things and I'll look at it and I'm like, oh my god, he's cross-eyed. And sometimes even though I've got a good eye and I can spot things, sometimes I just can't get it right. So I'm looking at this. Let me bring this light in overhead so I've got a little bit more light here for 1 second, just before I turn my camera on. See, when I'm holding it up in front of my face really close, it's in line, so that's good. Let me hold it more at a distance. No, that's okay. I think. Let's change to the overhead camera and we'll start. Oh, itchy nose. I know this, some people think looks good, and sometimes I think it looks good. But oh my god, it gets in the way sometimes. Okay, let's switch on the overhead camera and we will do the eyes. We're going to do the colour of the irises, so we're going to start laying on layers of brown to build that up. I've got a few pictures of him up on my screen, both as Kylo Ren in the film, so it's important to know how they look in the film, but also pictures of Adam Driver, and you have to check that they use their normal eye colour in the film. Sometimes they have contact lenses, but pictures of Adam Driver where he's been paparazzi'd, because they usually have a bright flash in front of the face, and those shots are great for having really brightly lit up eyes and you can see the actual colour of someone's eyes, and that helps you when you're working with colours. But you don't want to make the eyes look like that, because that's too bright. People don't look like that under normal lighting conditions. But I've got different pictures. I'm just checking if there's anything that had better pictures of his eyes. Well, that's quite a good one. because some pictures work better than others, I'm just opening up another one so I can zoom in on his colours, and I will shrink that down and zoom that in and make it a little bit brighter. I know you can't see any of this. I've just opened up a different picture that's got a photo, good close-up photo of his eyes, and I've just zoomed it in, cropped it a bit brighter, and I am just making the colours a little bit brighter so I can see his eyes a bit better. There you go, that'll do. Cool. Right, let us do this. So get the, what am I doing? Overhead camera. Change to the overhead camera. There's me down here. Right, so that's your camera. This chair keeps on sinking down. I need a new chair. I know which one I want to buy as well, but it's like £300 and not yet. Okay, so water over there, paint. Let's get all this paint up there out of the way. Let's get the thingy, what's it, there. The palette. I think that's a little bit far away, isn't it? How big is it when I'm... Have I unzoomed that? Yeah. No, wrong camera, Darren. Alright, hang on. Let's get me in the corner fixed and then go to camera 2. There you go. And the focus is... okay, about there. Yep, that's fine. I can work with that. Bring that a little bit forward and I can rest my elbow on the desk. I can work like that. Yep, that'll do. Let's tilt this down a little bit. And I'll do the usual. When I'm mixing colours, I'll lift this up and try and show you what I'm doing. Because I could have this view that you're seeing of my desk more zoomed out, so you would see more of my desk and you'd see more brushes and paints and the palette and stuff, but then you wouldn't see the head that I was working on. Would be a little tiny head down here somewhere and you wouldn't see, so I've zoomed it in so you can see what I'm working on, the thing that I'm supposed to be trying to show you. Right, here's first lesson of the day. So I picked up this just to explain how I'm going to be showing you stuff. I just got a bunch of paint on my fingers, which I can feel is wet because I can, you know, when water is on you and it starts drying and you can feel it. Well, I can feel that. And then I went to pick up this and start showing it to you, and I would have got paint all over his face. That's a good start to the day. So let's get, that's not coming off. Right, so paint off that finger. Paint off that finger. I'm just using the water out of my brush cup, my brush cleaning cup, to get the paint off my fingers. Right, I think I'm safe now. I think I'm okay. Shall we try again? I'm knocking things over now. Oh, that's totally throwing me. Okay. So, Kylo Ren. Can't lean on there because that's... if I lean on my desk, that goes there. So if I lean on my desk down here... okay, fine. So, I did his eyes. Now I've just noticed there was a delay on my camera preview image that I see there, and usually means that my computer is slowing down or something. Oh, it is getting very hot. Why do things always happen? I have a program that I use to turn up the fan speed, which cools the computer. Because I'm using this program to record, it overheats my computer. My computer is old. quite a few. Well, it's not really, really old, but it's oldish. There you go. And it's old enough that doing things like recording a video through this piece of software is fairly strenuous on the computer, and it gets hot, and I had the settings set to a certain level of the fan cooling because it's quieter, but I forgot to turn it back to auto, and with everything I've been doing it had gone really, really hot, and I just touched the computer and it was burny hot. So I've just turned the fan on, put it on auto, and straight away it went whoosh, trying to cool itself down. So you can hear that background hiss almost. It's the computer, which is just, it's underneath my computer screens, under the little shelf that I have. And it is now cooling itself down, and hopefully it does. Okay, so let's get back to this. Ignore the background noise. In fact, what I can do is bring, excuse me, apart from that noise, bring my microphone a little bit closer, and maybe that just goes a bit louder and a bit clearer for you. So, we did his eyes. Now see, that's weird. I'm looking at them here in 3D with my two eyes, and they look fine. I'm looking at the screen and they look wonky. What the hell? Let me... Where's the focus? I'm looking at the screen now to see what you're seeing. See, that looks fine, that looks fine, that looks fine, that looks fine. When they're straight on, it looks a little bit... Looks like this one's a bit bigger and that one's a bit more round, weirdly. But then that's fine, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. When I look at them in person, they sort of look okay. Could be the shape, maybe. Sometimes you get sculpts where like the shape of one eye is slightly different than the shape of the other eye, and it can be difficult to paint the eyes in a way that look right because they are slightly different. Now I'm not saying this is, whoever sculpted this, I'm not saying your eyes are wrong. I'm just saying sometimes that's the reason. It could just be that I've painted it wrong. But as I look at it, even now with my stereoscopic vision with both my eyes, it looks right, but on the screen it looks a little bit wrong. I will carry on and I will fix it if it needs fixing along the way. That's what we'll do. So let's just carry on as normal. And if I think I need to adjust it, then I will adjust it later on. Right, so his eyes are there. We've still just got the dark grey that we used, I think, to do his irises. Now we're going to put some brown on. Now looking at his eyes, the way they look on camera most of the time, it is almost black. That's how it looks. But what we're going to do, and this is similar to the way that I painted the eyes. For those of you who know, when I made a dancing Groot figure that was in a plant pot and it danced to music, it was sound activated. Excuse me. And then afterwards I made some fridge magnets from the same head. When I painted those eyes, all the toys and people making customs, they painted Groot's eyes black, and they weren't. His eyes, they looked black a lot of the time, but they were actually brown. They had a brown circle on the eyes. It was just very dark and pushed back into the colour. This is almost the same. So they're going to be dark. They're going to be darker than that, but there's going to be brown in there. So what I'm going to do, we're going to build it up with colour. I'm going to get some flat brown because I think that's a good way to start. And I'm just going to do some layers of flat brown, nice and thin, on top of this, just following the shape of the iris for now. just filling it in. Maybe leaving a dark grey edge around the edge, maybe not painting right up to the edge, because sometimes eyes have like a, it's not black, but it's a darker edge to the iris. So we will leave it with that. So I'm just going to put some colour down there. I'm going to thin it right down. Let me see if I can push this even further back so you can see that. So I suppose I can use any old brush for this bit. So I'm just going to use one of my cheap brushes that doesn't have a perfect point, but it doesn't really have to for this because I'm not painting detail here. I need a point, which this has, but as long as I can paint the circle, then we're okay. So I'm just getting some, where are we? Some water on there, and then putting some brown in, and I want it to be thin. I don't want it to be super thin. I don't want it to be like, you know, just water that has a tint of brown in it, but I don't want it to just be solid paint. I'm layering over the grey here. I probably could paint it with a solid brown colour, but it's just not how I do it. So let's just see this. Okay, so you can see that. So as long as I can look over my glasses so I can focus on the thing, because I'm old. Let's just see how that's... So it's thin down brown water. And I'm going pretty much almost to the top, although that's not super important because there's always a shadow under the eyelids. Let me see if I can focus right in and show you what I'm doing here. So see that eye, the grey one? That was a grey circle. There's a slightly lighter, let's do it a little bit more. A slightly lighter arc of lighter grey on the bottom, just from when I was adjusting it, and I knew that wouldn't make any difference. It was actually quite good because sometimes eyes look like that. So what I've done here, where's the focus? I've just painted the first layer of that brown on top, so you can see the difference between the brown one and the grey one. So we're doing that, and we're painting that brown on both eyes. I'll see if I can do this up under the camera just so you can see what I'm doing at this stage. Let me get the focus to where my elbow is on the desk, because then I can hold it steady. Because it's impossible. In fact, no, that's what I can do. I can bring the camera down towards the desk physically, which means that I can lean on the desk and hold it closer, which then means I can bring the focus up to about there. And as long as I hold it in place under the camera, I know it's at the right height because my elbow is on the desk. So let's see if I can... Don't have too much liquid on this brush because otherwise it goes everywhere. It's already difficult. I can realise this because I'm not looking down at the head, at the thing that I'm painting in the way that I normally want to. So I'm just dropping this down with little drops, basically. Just going dab, 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 dab. I'm building it up. And I'm taking it up to the top, but I'm not really going to the super top. I'm not touching it on the eyelashes or anything, the eyelid, because that's going to have a shadow put on it anyway. But you can see how that's building up. Now the other side is already dry, so I'm going to go over that. But what I'm going to do now, because that's a nice dark brown, that's dried darker. Let me show this. See how this side is a brighter brown, it's a more chocolatey brown, and this one's gone darker? That's because it's dried and paint always dries darker anyway, but when it's a thin layer like this, they always dry a little bit more translucent, so you see more of the grey underneath, but it's dried darker. So what I'm going to do is do a second layer on top with more of the dab to build up the colour, but I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to go around the bottom, so it almost looks like a highlight around the bottom of the eye, and I will explain in a second why that is around the bottom. For those of you who can figure it out, you already know why the bottom would be lighter. But if I do that, let's see, can I find it? Where can I get the reflection? There you go. So you can just see the bottom of the eye is wet, the top of the eye is dry. So when that dries, the brown that is around the bottom of the eye will be slightly brownier. More brown, more chocolatey. There'll be more colour on it because it's 2 layers, it's a bit thicker, and it's almost as if I've painted a dark colour and then gone on and painted a lighter colour to make some highlights, but in this case I'm just using the same colour. And I will be doing a different colour. I'm just doing this for now because it gives us the same effect. It gives the effect of having a darker top edge and a lighter bottom edge, which is what I would normally do with paint anyway, but this is just letting me do that with the same colour. I mean, I would normally do that with different colours of paint, I should say. But this, because these are simpler eyes, they're just dark but they're brown, it means I can do the same thing where I would normally put a colour down, let them dry, get a different colour, mix it lighter, add some white to it or some cream or something, or use a different colour, and paint the highlights on the bottom with the different colour. But in this case I'm just doing it with the same colour, and then I'm going to go in with a different colour and do a few details. There's not going to be a huge amount of detail on these eyes just because he doesn't have them, but it'll be good to put something on there. I'm just turning this upside down so I can see that bottom edge a little bit clearer, just so I can take that bottom curve a little bit closer to where I want it to be. Sometimes you have to turn things upside down just so you can get to them properly. That's actually really good already. And once I've done like some subtle highlight and some subtle shadows to make them darker and then put the pupils on, that's going to look really good. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, so the highlights on the bottom edge. If you think about where light comes from as you're walking around, it's usually above, whether it's on a ceiling or in the sky. Light usually comes down, and you've got the eyes are in the sockets of your eye, so you've got this ridge here of where your eyebrow is, and you've got the eyebrows themselves, and your eyes are set back, so the top edge is usually a bit more in shadow, and they've got the eyelids and the eyelashes also covering the top of the eye, so the top of the eyeball is a bit more in shadow. That's why I always paint a shadow either with different colours or just a darker version of the same colour around the top edge of the eye, right under the eyelid, that's a darker shadow and a darker colour of the iris. The bottom edge is lighter, partially just as a counter to that, so it looks like it has the right effect, but also the way eyes work, the shape of them inside the clear front of the eyes, your iris is like a 3D thing, and the light coming down hits that bottom edge a bit more. So you look at photos of people where they've got light coming down, in different versions they will have somewhere either right on the bottom or maybe off to one side, but always on the bottom there will be a lighter version of that colour, just because the light, that's where the light is hitting it. So that's what I'm doing with all of this. I already like how that's looking. Now what I want to do, let me just zoom in this photo I have of his eyes so I can see what I'm doing. See, when you're working from pictures, and if you have a picture that's a nice flash lit photo, so you've got good front on light that lets you see the colour of their eyes in an exaggerated way that you would never normally, but it lets you see them really clearly. What you can do is use that colour and the shape of the colour. Now in this case his eyes are just basically brown. There's no, some people have blue and then grey and green in certain patterns and bits of dots of, some people have loads going on. In his case they're just sort of brown. So these are quite simple. But you can look at the lit up versions. I should have, through this whole thing, done that. You can look at the lit up versions, the floodlit versions of the eyes, see what colours they are, see where the patterns of the colours are, if there are any. Use that, but then paint a darker version of that, rather than looking at eyes that essentially look black. And you could paint them like that and they would look alright, but if you can get the colour that they are and just do a really dark version of that, but putting in the same colours in the same places to the same patterns, just darker set back versions of those, then you'll end up with realistic eyes. Realistic eyes to that specific person, which is way better than just painting dark eyes or black eyes or blue eyes or green eyes. They will be eyes of that person because you've worked from the really lit up paparazzi photo or something. So go back to that. So what I want to do now is get a lighter brown. So I used that, which was flat brown in this case. I want to mix, do I want to use, so there's flat earth there, that's not quite orangey enough. I mean, to be honest, I could use light brown. I reckon if I mixed some light brown with the flat brown, that might be a good, I want a fairly orange colour. I mean, I might even mix some yellow in with this, but tell you what, let's give it a quick shake. Let's throw some light brown down on the palette, only a little bit because we're only using small quantities, so that there. And let's mix some in. So get some water down here, get some of the flat brown in there, and then let's chuck some light brown into it. I could go with just a pure light brown colour and thin it right down and just build up thin layers of light brown, and do it so thin that at first it's almost just water that's going on, so it's almost the same colour. I could do it that way, or I could make the colour itself a mixture of the two browns and do it that way, which is what I'm doing. Just, I don't know, it just feels like that would work. Now I actually want them to be, that's okay, and I could work with that. Where's the reflections? There you go. I could work with that, but I want it to be a bit more yellow and a bit more red. So I'm going to get a little bit of flat red, because I have two reds. I own the princely amount of two reds. I have flat red and vermilion, because they're the only ones I bought, because they're the ones that I thought might have been decent replacement for the two MP paints that I had. Now they're actually not that similar, but they are red and I can work with them, so it's fine. So little tiny dot of that, and I'm going to put it in there. You don't need much because red overpowers things quite quickly, and straight away that's quite good. In fact, I'm going to stick with that. I don't need to do anything more than that, not for now. So that colour there that I've just mixed, which is the mix of those two and a tiny drop of red, I'm going to get some of that. I'm going to do exactly the same thing as I just did before, but I'm going to get a different brush. Okay, let's use... That's too big, I don't want that one. Where's my other brush gone? So there's a big one, there's... Yeah, that'll do. So, one of my good Raphael brushes. So I'm going to take some of that brown on the thing, and it's very subtle here because it's very watered down, but I want to get more on the brush, but not too much. See if I can put some on the nail where you can't really see it. It's super thin. If I try and blob some down, there you go. You can see that. If I do a few layers, but it's super thin. And all I'm going to do here is imagine the light is coming down from above, and where would that be on the eye? And I'm not painting the whole thing, I'm painting the top edge of the bottom of the eye. So almost the bit that would be around the pupil. Let me see if I can zoom that in so you can see what I'm doing. No, that is already zoomed in. Okay, in that case, let me see if I can lift the focus up. Make it awkward for myself, as it always is. Okay, so it's fine where I'm resting my elbow. So I've got some of this lighter colour. Oop, too much. So see that little ring of brown that I've put on? That's actually more paint than I wanted to put on, because I was focusing on where I was holding my hands as opposed to where I was actually painting, and I blobbed too much on. I made a mistake in trying to show you what I was doing. So what I'm doing is I'm doing the other side to match, and I will tone it down with a thin wash afterwards, but I just want to get the colour down. I'm going to do it a slightly different way. I was going to slowly build it up, but what I think I'll do now is get the colour on a little bit stronger than I was going to, and then tone it back rather than putting it on super subtle and slowly building it up. Get the same result, just a slightly different route to get there. Which you can do, that's fine. As long as you get the end result, it doesn't really matter how you get there. And as you paint more, you'll find your own techniques and your own methods of doing things. And sometimes they will slowly evolve over the years, and sometimes you'll find like a drastically different way of doing something. And sometimes you'll find those from accidents, like just there where I put on way too much paint. I just did another blob on that eye there. Slightly too hard, too harsh, the colour that I wanted, but it will still work, and I can push it back a little bit with a wash over it, and it will get exactly the same result. So sometimes you'll make a mistake, and sometimes that mistake you realise, whoa, that's actually a quicker way of doing that. and it can change how you paint from that point onwards because you made a mistake. So don't be too scared. And like I said, I think in the last video, don't worry, you can't ruin it. It can always be undone. Nothing is permanent or destroyed or ruined. It's just a thing that you're painting. If you have to paint it again, you paint it again. If you can get there quickly with a clean brush and wipe it off, you can do that. Nothing's ruined though, so don't worry about it. But you can see what I've done there. Let me see if I can, now that I'm not painting, see if I can lift the focus up a little bit higher. Nope, not high enough. Let's see if I can lift the focus up a little bit higher. I mean, this is a few inches, a few centimeters from the camera here, and also you can see it's going in shadow because I'm blocking the light. But if you can see the little random dabs of lighter brown that I've done around the bottom edge, and they're different in each eye, and they're not perfect semicircles, they're slightly random shapes. That's deliberate because I want them to be different. Now those colours as they sit are brighter than I want them to sit when it's done. I was going to slowly build it up from a darker colour and just do layer after layer to get there, but in trying to hold it for the camera I put a blob of paint on there. I thought, okay, you know what, I'm just going to go straight ahead and work with that. So I just did the lighter colour straight away, and then I'll tone it down afterwards. So that's what we're doing there. Okay, let's get that back down to a normal level. Now his eyes are quite dark in normal daylight, or in normal lighting I should say. Just move the camera settings out of the way on the screen so I can see what I'm doing. I'm just turning my fan up a little bit because it's slowed down a bit, but I can still see that my computer core is quite hot. And when that happens, my webcams crash. So I'm just going to hopefully cool things down a bit with that. So we've done, let's focus, down there. We've done that, we've done the brown, we've done the highlight brown. His eyes under normal circumstances are quite dark, darker than I've got here. But I've got to imagine what's it going to look like with the black iris, the black pupil in the middle, and what's it going to look like when the shadow is done, because I don't want to make the colour darker thinking that I'm doing the right thing and going, oh, well, they look too bright and colourful now, they look too light, I'm going to make them darker. And then I put on the black pupil and I put on the shadow at the top, the darker version of the colour, and you put on the eyelashes, and all of a sudden you look at it and it's like, oh, that looks too dark now, you can't see any colour. So you've got to imagine, okay, that what I've done there, it looks too bright, and it probably is, but what would it be like with a line of, you know, a blended line of dark shadow at the top? And what would it be like with black pupils and anything else around it? So you have to imagine that. So I'm looking at that, and my first thoughts are that brown is too bright, I want that to be darker and more subtle, but with pupils and the shadows and stuff, it's not that far off. So what I'm going to do, the shading that I was going to do, which was to take a darker version of brown, like the dark brown that we mixed, that we put on in layers on top of the grey, maybe take that and just do a super thin wash over the whole thing, just to push back that highlight colour. But I think I'm going to do that at the end. I was going to do that next. I'm going to do that at the end after we've done everything else, so I can see better how it's going to look. What I'll do next is do some of the shadow work. Where are we? 40 minutes. Yeah, we can do the shadow work. I don't want the videos to be too long. Now, what have we got? Black brown, that'll be perfect. Black brown is the equivalent of, hello, is the equivalent German camouflage black brown, it's called. 822 for those of you who are checking numbers. But again, link in the description of the video, and all these should be listed. At least, oh my god, I've got the burps. At least all the ones I use on a regular basis. Because I bought a load of paint, or I got a load of paint. I bought some people bought some for me. I collected a load of paint. And thank you to the people who did send me paint, by the way. Again. But I have a load of paint, and I am, as I use these more, realizing already, and it will get narrowed down over time, or it'll be refined over time, where I know, okay, when I'm doing this particular thing, I'm going to use that color and that color, and out of all of those different types of skin, I'm actually using those three the most, and stuff like that. And that's going to end up with a core set of paints that I use, like with the MP paints, where I did everything I've ever painted with like 12 colors or something, and it's going to be like that. And I don't think it's going to be that drastic, but it's going to be something very similar. I'll have a core set of paints that I do everything with, but then because I've already got them, I will have these extra colours sprinkled around the edges that I'm not using as much, but they will be there and they will get used, because sometimes I go, oh, that's a good random colour to add to this thing, I might as well use that colour. So they will all get used. But there will be core colours that I do everything with, and that you could do everything with yourself. And those colours will definitely be on the lists. And if they're not, tell me, because I need to add them. I've got a lot to do. Sometimes I forget. Like now, what was I doing? I was doing a thing, and then I started explaining a thing, and then I forgot the thing. What was the thing? Shadow. Hello. Right. German camouflage black brown. I was shaking the thing and I was talking to you. So I've just put some down. Pay attention, Darren. So I've just put some down there. I could mix some black with that. Do I want to put black with it? No, let's just do some camouflage at the start. So, where are we? Just putting some water down, because I want this to be thin. Get some black brown, mixing it in. I actually need some more water because I need it to be thinner than that, because this is not me painting a dark colour at the top of the eye. I mean, it is, and that's how I've done it previously, but I'm putting down a thin layer of darker colour, but it's a wash over the original colour. I have in the past painted just pure dark colour on top of things, but that's not what I'm doing now. Now I'm going to do this one by myself, with the focus down here, just so I can see what I'm doing. Why is the focus? Oh, it's because I pulled the camera a bit further down, wasn't it? Okay, so that's the focus though. So I just want to see what I'm doing first, and then I'll show you the other eye a bit closer if I can. Okay, so turning the sideways just so I can see what I'm doing. So I've got the eye that was dark grey, or it might have been black brown itself actually, and then brown on top, and then a few layers of the brown built up around the bottom to act as a fake highlight but using the same colour, and then some actual highlight with a lighter colour on top of that, and then I'm just putting some black brown in the very top to darken it up. Alright, so let's see if I can now at this closeness, because of the light that's like, you know, inches above the thing, you might not be able to see what I've just done. You might be able to. So on the one that I haven't done, it's like that. On the one that I just did, can you see how the top of the eye, like right up under the eyelid, is just a bit darker than that one? That's what I've done. So I've painted along the top, on the eyeball, on the iris, I've painted along the top curve, sort of immediately under the eyelid, basically gone blob, 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 blob. So it fills the thing. It's not a super straight line, it's blob, 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 blob. And then what I've done is I've brought some of that a little bit lower into where the pupil will go, just so we're getting a darker shape. And I'll show you that now. So I've just mixed up that dark brown again. Let's see if I can get this here, and let's see if I can show you this on the other one, which is going to be difficult because I'm having to hold my arm. Look at me in the corner there. I'm having to hold my arm up sideways, and it's so difficult. Right. Make sure I don't get paint on the head again like I did. There you go. So there. So I've got dark brown paint. I'm going up, right up under the eyelid. And I'm just going blob, 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 blob. Blob, blob, blob. And then doing the same thing, but bringing it down into the middle of the eye. And just around where the pupil will go. So there's already a darker shape. There you go, you can see it there where it's wet. It's a bit shiny. So there's already going to be a darker shape when I put the pupils there, like a darker base as a, here's roughly where you need to do it. And any bits that are slightly on the outside of the pupil itself, give the pupil a softer edge. And I don't like my pupils to be super hard circles, because most eyes don't look like that if you actually look at them. I want them to be the dark pupil with a little bit of hazing around the edges, and this lets me do that. A dark colour that the black goes on. I often build it up with black or dark grey with thin washes, and go do a layer, let it dry, do a layer, let it dry, and build it up. This is essentially the same thing, but just I'm doing it because they've brown eyes anyway. I'm doing it while I'm doing the shadows. So what I'm going to do, I might as well do that while you're here, is get the same colour again. Where is the camera? Let's see, I rest my finger there. You've got the focus about there. That's about in the right position. Okay, so if I can hold that there, you're okay. So I'm just going back under. Okay, so same thing again. Right under at the top of the eye, under the eyelid. This camouflage black grey, camouflage black brown. I'm going to go back in and do it on the other one because the other one's had 2 layers. So I'm going to give this one another layer. Let's see if I can turn it upside down. Sometimes turn them upside down lets you see things better because the light isn't throwing shadows. It's hard to see. You can sort of see it if I do it like that. So we had, it was grey or black brown for the base of the pupil, then a overall wash of brown, I think it was flat brown, then another layer of that just around the bottom of the iris, then another layer again around the bottom of the iris, then the lighter brown I think it was flat earth with... No, it was light brown with a little bit of red. And a little bit of flat brown, I think. Whatever it was, mixed together and done around the bottom half, but the top edge of the crescent shape on the bottom of the eye. So the bottom half of the eye, but it was on that crescent shape. It was the top half of the crescent shape, and we did a bunch of blump, 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 painted highlights. A little bit stronger than I was initially going to do to start with, but once I made a mistake, I was like, okay, might as well, instead of trying to undo that, I'll go with it. So we did both of them the same, and they don't look bad. They're just a little bit stronger than I was going to do straight away. And then we've got some of that German camouflage black brown and painted some shadows right up under, make sure there's no wet paint on my fingertip there, right up under the eyelid on the eye and into where the pupil will go, and done a few layers of that, and it's already starting to look like an eye. We haven't done the pupil yet, but you can see where the pupil's going to go, and you can see the start of the pupil because I've done a darker layer, and that's going to have the black done on top. Now I always try and make it not actual black. Either it's very dark grey or it is black, but it's just really watered down black. And I build it up so it's a pupil and it's a circle and it's really, really dark, but it's not a super hard. It's not like you've dipped your paint, your brush, in a jar of black paint and you've gone blob, which is how I used to do it 13 years ago. But it's not how I do it now. And we'll do that on top, and then I will look at the colour of the brown on each eye and go, right, does that need to be pushed back a little bit? Because I think it will. And then we'll take one of the browns and we'll do a thin wash and we'll wash over it just to push it back a little bit. But that is letting us work towards the colour of the brown that I know he has. But just not the full flash in your face version of his eyes. It's a more realistic out in normal daylight eyes, but working towards the colour that I know is there. And that's what we've been doing. So that's enough for today's video, because that's almost an hour. Well, 53 minutes. Why has it gone really bright? My camera's gone really bright. Oh, the sun's come out. That's why. That'll do it. Let me camera one, change camera one to the daylight. Oh no, that is the daylight setting. I've already got it on. Let's turn down the gain a little bit. That's a bit better. That might be too much. I've done it too much. It's fine. We're ending the video anyway. It doesn't matter, Darren. You'll reset them for the next time. Okay, so that's the start of his eyes. Now, in this case, his eyes are actually really simple because I'm just painting brown, and then highlights of brown, and then shadows of brown, and then doing the pupils. So it's a lot simpler. I'm not really matching shapes or multiple colours, because often you'll have someone who has grey eyes with blue bits here, with sort of green mixed in, with bits of green here and bits of brown here, and then the pupil. And when you're doing that, you are matching not only those colours to that particular person, you are matching the shapes. Where is it green? Where is it brown? There's a stripe here, there's a few dots on this side, there's a sort of blobby smudge up at the top, and you're doing all of that, and that takes much longer than what we're doing now. So the fact that I've done one video and sort of almost got the colour on his eyes done, it just feels way quicker than it usually is. But I'm not going to complain. As long as I don't mess up the pupil, which can happen, do the perfect eyes, get them done, go on with the pupil, blop, build it up. Oh, it's in the wrong place. And that's sort of why I do it the way I do it now. Not only I think it looks better. Why am I looking over the top? You can't even... I think it looks better having a softer built up pupil with slightly softer edges. I just like how that looks. but it also gives you more time if you're building it up and you realize, oh, the pupil's a little bit over here, it's a bit too much. You just start building it back up over here and you have a bit more time to adjust it. Whereas if you go in with black on your brush on a perfectly painted pupil where you've spent 2 days painting it, and you go blob, and you put it in the wrong place, then it's like, ah, and you have to try and clean it off really quickly. And the process of cleaning it off can sometimes darken the eye, because even though you're using water and you're washing that black paint off and you get most of it off, and pretty much always you'll get it all off, sometimes that process will leave a bit of a black wash stuck to bits of the eye that it didn't come off, and sometimes you end up having to paint the whole eye again, and that's happened many times for me. So I try and avoid that. I do everything I can to avoid that. Hence me doing things the way I do them. So that was part, what did I say? 12. That was part 12. Come back in part 13 and we will, what will we do? We'll have a look at the eyes. We'll see how we're doing. We will maybe put the pupil in, or we'll maybe save that for a little bit later on. Maybe we'll do more around the eyes. Maybe we'll see if we need to do anything more with his eyelashes. Maybe we'll start doing his eyebrows. Maybe we'll give his hair another dark layer, because that the black, or the black brown, the dark brown that we put on needs more paint on it, because it was one, you know, base layer, but it's also been getting held while I've been working on it without varnish or anything, so the peaks have worn a little bit thin, so that needs painting to take back to the actual color we need it to be, and then paint some highlights on it. And we need to repaint his collar and stuff like that. So we'll come back in the next video and have a look. We'll see what we're going to do. We might do, maybe we'll start his eyebrows. We'll have a look at his eyes and around his eyes, see if there's anything that needs doing there, and then we'll do that or his eyebrows, probably. I don't know. Sometimes I've decided what I'm going to do on the day, and we're like, right, next time we're going to do this. And I get there on the day, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'll do something else. But it's fine. There's no set order to do things. Some things you have to do first, because the layers are earlier layers, and you have to build up the layers to get there. But sometimes you can get to a stage where you're like, I could do that, or I could do that completely different thing, because it doesn't really matter. These are just separate things now. And we're sort of there. I could do his eyebrows, I could do more on his eyes, I could do more work on his skin if I wanted to. I could do more work on his lips. I could paint the collar, I could paint the hair. We'll see when I come back to do it. So, thank you for sticking around for almost an hour now. Look after yourselves, look after everyone around you, be nice to animals. I will see you in part, I've forgotten again, 13, I think. And we will do more of that. We're getting closer now. There's not a huge amount left. I'm putting my high-tech force field on top of the head to stop any dust getting on there. Yeah, we're not a massive amount away now. I think 3 or 4 videos, maybe. I don't know. It depends how quick it goes. And I can never tell that. As anyone who's had a commission from me where I've said, yeah, that's going to take a week, and it ends up taking me like 2 months to paint, they will know. But I think there's 3 or 4 videos left on this. So I will see you next time. Look after yourselves, and yeah, link in the description of the stuff that I'm using, or there should be. If there isn't, shout at me and throw things at me. The link that I've set up is at the moment a UK link to UK Amazon products, just because that's where I set up, because that's where I am. I'm in the process of setting up a US link, because half my audience is in America, half of it is closer to home. That may be set up by the time you see this video. It may not be, I'm not sure. I'm in the process of doing it now. It's finding time to do it when I'm trying to do everything else. We'll get there. But thanks for sticking around, thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed the video, hope you found it a little bit useful, hope you find the next one useful, hope you find any of these useful. or entertaining, or just relaxing, or whatever. I don't really mind. Just nice to have you here. I'm putting my finger on the end credits button so I know where I am. I'm going now. I'm waffling. I'm doing that thing again. I'll see you soon. Look after yourselves. See you next time. Bye.